Welcome back to another episode of The Playlist on your favorite radio station. And today I have a special guest with me. He goes by the name of Unlearn the World. And we're going to get into a lot of interesting, fun topics, the stuff you may not know about him, stuff you may know about him. But let's go ahead and get into your artist name.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Oh man, it's crazy because like I grew up in New York City, right? I was a battle rapper, so I had like a really complex rap name, and I tried to simplify it to get in the music industry, right? So,
right.
But at the same time, I'm always like I'm a book reader. I'm socially conscious, or I try to be. So I wanted something that was real short and to the point. Right?
Yeah.
That was like my nickname in high school, and then when I started working on music and trying to put music out, I recognized like that was kind of ambiguous. People didn't really know what it was. So the movie Higher Learning, John Singleton directed it years ago. At the end of the movie, in big bright red letters, it says the word unlearn. And I was like, yo, that's what I want. But when I was trying to put my first album out, there's a group in Canada that has the same artist's name. They're called Unlearn. And I was like, all right, well, how do I differentiate that? The song that made me want to start rapping to begin with was The World Is Yours by Nas, right?
Okay.
Shout out to Nas, because that's like my hero. So I just put the words together, Unlearn the World. And it's more like a mission statement. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It reminds me of like everything we deal with in life is like, we have society constantly telling us who we want to be or who we're supposed to be, you know, that we're not enough of this or we're not enough of that or whatever the case is. And you're being conditioned in every aspect of your life. So in order for you to really fulfill your purpose and what you think you're on this earth for, you got to break that conditioning. You have to unlearn the world. So it's just my journey. It's my mission statement. You know what I'm saying? And then people who rock with it, people always say like, yo, that's such an interesting name.
It is.
So
it's dope. It's dope. So before we get into your journey, I want to know, like, do you feel like what do you feel like there's things about the world that you need to unlearn or habits that you have that you need to unlearn?
Oh, man. I mean, how long is this show? Like, we could go forever because...
Give us a couple.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like, for anybody, really, like, you know, going back to what I said, people and society at large is always trying to tell you who you are, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're, you know, Black or Latino, there's certain expectations or stereotypes that come with that we kind of reinforce.
Exactly.
There's things that we tell ourselves. You know what I'm saying? There's an amazing book called The Four Agreements, if anybody's familiar with it. But it tells you like the things that you tell yourself are the things that become your prison, or it could be your paradise, right?
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? It's ultimately that. Or what people are telling you that you agree to, what your parents told you, what your teachers told you, this and this and that. So for me, it's always been, you know, coming up in the environments that I came up with, there were certain expectations. You was either going to be dead, you was going to be in jail, you was going to be in the streets, and I didn't want any of that. I've seen my friends go through it. I've seen a lot of people go through it. I've seen how it shook up families, and I wanted to pave a different path, right? So that's me first breaking that, right? Breaking generational traumas. My parents come from the Dominican Republic, breaking whatever immigrants have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? Being a first generation American in this country, like things of that nature. Like, so you're constantly breaking different things, right? Like now I'm a little older. So I have a whole different set of things that I have to start breaking, like bad habits, not eating sugar, like things of that. Like, I mean, it's little things, but it's really deeply rooted in things that we grew up with, things that we told ourselves for years that we just accepted. So it's at a certain point, you got to say, like, is this helping me? Is this serving my purpose? If not, I got to let it go. I got to break it. I got to unlearn it and find something else.
Yeah. The fact that you're conscious about that is also really, really important, because people go through their whole lives thinking, okay, what I learned as a child or what my parents taught me or what I learned in school or what a friend told me is, you know, just the right way on how to, you know, guide myself through my life. And it's not always that way. I had a conversation with my dad like last weekend. We were talking about the same things. I was like, now as he's older, he's like, you know, everything that my mother and father taught me isn't right, you know? And being conscious of that is so important, because you can go through your whole life thinking like this is the right way to eat. Like you were mentioning, you know, like sugar isn't good for you, but you know, there was certain foods that were cooked for us as
completely
children.
Acceptable and normalized, right? Certain behavior patterns are normalized, right? Yelling at each other and like acting out in certain ways. In relationships, certain things are normalized. We accept it as the culture, right? Especially in hip hop, we accept a lot of toxic behavior in our culture as hip hop artists, R&B artists, just people in this industry. that we recognize it for what it is, but at the same time we enjoy it. But why is that, right? How is it serving us collectively, individually? These are the things that we have to start asking ourselves.
Exactly.
So, it's interesting.
And speaking of the hip hop culture, you told me that you've been doing this for about like 30 years now. Yeah. So, from East Coast to West Coast, walk us through your journey. Like, what was that like?
I mean, like anybody who loves hip hop, right? You immerse yourself in the culture in one way or another. I always tell, I teach hip hop for a living. So I tell my students all the time, like, hip hop didn't come to me on SoundCloud or something like that. I was literally outside with it, right? Like my brothers were break dancers or some sort of club dancers. My cousins were DJs. So I grew up immersed in it. And then by the time I'm a teenager and I'm learning how to write raps and I'm battle rapping, and I also want to get in the music industry. So I'm interning at record labels. I'm literally immersed in the culture. You know what I'm saying? And I just take that experience from when I was a kid, high school, all of that up until present day. And I recognize my career and my experience in this covers over 30 years. Like I've seen the evolution of this culture, starting from like Jay-Z and Nas and East Coast, West Coast beef. And then you get Lil Wayne co-signing Drake. And I've seen it all and I've heard it all. And I've been on one level or another, I've been part of it, whether in the music industry or just doing music as an independent artist. So you just kind of see the evolution of this culture that means so much to me, not just the music aspect of it, but the dance, the fashion, all of the things, right? And I just started recognizing that is my value as an artist. My experience in all of these different eras of hip hop is what informs the way that I produce, the way that I make beats, the way that I write songs. I'm pulling from all these different eras. So you'll get a cool Run DMC style break beat on one record, but then I sample it and I chop it up so that it sounds like it's trap. And it sounds like it's something contemporary and relevant and all of these different things. And you have all these elements in my music. So you could be 40 and listen to what I do and really appreciate it for the lyricism or what you recognize as hip hop. Or you could be young, like 18, and just recognize it for the beats or the melodies or the sample chops behind it. There's something for everybody in most of the music that I do. So I just try to speak to us as a culture and where we're at.
Yeah, you mentioned something that really caught my attention. You talked about the evolution of music, and that is so important to talk about because the music today, a lot of it is the beats are created just from a simple software system.
Yes.
Not like back in the day where you have actual instruments
Hardware
and actual people.
Instruments and tape recordings and all of that, right?
Exactly. So just the sound of the music is completely different. And I don't know if this is something that you noticed, but even the lyrics that are on top of certain beats, they just seem like they match so well from music back in the day versus now. It's a little different.
Yeah,
it's a little different, and let's be honest about that. But what would you say is your least favorite part about the evolution of music? And then talk about your favorite part of the evolution.
It's like a double-edged sword. And the problem with this double-edged sword is that it doesn't have a handle, right? There's really no handle on this. It comes with technology. Hip-hop culture has always been on the forefront of technology. We popularized beat machines because beat machines in the 80s was legit trying to copy what the DJs in the Bronx was doing on turntables.
Exactly.
We didn't even have the equipment to do it, right? So it evolved. We evolved along with technology. So now that technology is where we are, social media, smartphones, apps that you can download, that you can record your voice on and make beats on and all of it, it becomes really accessible. The problem with that, it being really accessible, is that there is no kind of learning curve. You're not a lot of artists are spending the time learning who they are first and foremost, but then how to actually put effort into your music, right? We're always trying to catch the lick and we're trying to get popping and be lit one minute or another. So you record a dope song, you throw it on, Spotify, whatever streaming service, and it catches wind, and now you popping, and you have no idea of your business model. Right. You don't know how to work this industry. You have no cosigns. You're just in it,
right?
And you haven't given yourself, nor has anybody given you the tools for you to be able to thrive. And I think a lot of what we would consider the major labels or whatever the case is, mainstream, whatever, is they kind of rely on that because they rely on your ignorance to kind of exploit you in one way or another. You know what I'm saying? So I think though it is helpful for people to be able to access the technology that we have, right? And be able to be creative in their own right and do it for fun or whatever the case is. At the same time, it removes some of the dues you had to pay. When I was a kid, I had to be nice, first of all. Like people had to be like, yo, he's dope at rapping. And then somebody had to know somebody to walk you into a studio and record your rap, record whatever the case is. People had to start talking about you.
That opportunity.
Giving you that opportunity, and you learn throughout all of it. You know what I'm saying? So one thing that I try to do now when I work with other artists is I try to put them on to like, just asking them questions. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What kind of career do you want to have? You know what I'm saying? Like, these are questions that I have to ask myself often and be okay with the honest answers. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because we'll lie to ourselves all day and be like, nah, I want to be Drake famous. And like, you're not even prepared for that level. You know what it is to wake up and have like 1,000 mentions of you? A lot of it negative.
Right.
Like
that's the hardest part.
That takes a certain level of temperament and mental stability for you not to have that affect you or affect your life and the people in it. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. So we have the technology that makes us super creative and we can put out music whenever we want, as much as we want, but at the same time, there's really no lineage, there's no tutelage, there's no artist development anymore. Yeah. So we're missing that, you know what I'm saying? And the music, you can hear it in the music, especially, you know, me having that experience of seeing how it's evolved. Like, I see it in the music, I hear it in the music, I feel it, and we can see it in the way that rappers are interacting with each other. We can see it in the way that artists are just kind of building, and like we see who's popping because they have people helping them and educating them. And then the ones who are just kind of left on their own are just out there reckless.
Exactly. The biggest area that I see it in is the quality of music. We have a lot of quantity of music, but not a lot of quality of music that, you know, you can go back and listen to over and over and over, you know, like back in the day, like your Jay-Z's, like the albums they put out back in the day, your Ushers, your Mariah Careys, your, you know, Lil Wayne's. Those are records that, you know, we can always go back to and be like, oh my God, or we have that nostalgia. If we hear it in, you know, in the club or at a party or at an event or wherever we hear it, we're like, oh my God, that's my song.
Exactly.
With the new music out, I cannot remember me saying, oh my God, that's my song.
Right, and that's the problem, right? Like when we're talking about these legacy acts, because that's what you're talking about, legacy acts, right? Like I just saw something, Mariah Carey makes 72 million, or she makes like some absurd amount of money off of that Christmas song she does. Every year it hits the charts. Every year people play it. And she has a bunch of records like that, not just the Christmas record. Like Lil Wayne has a bunch of records like that. Like, so we're dealing with artists that are just kind of like a different type, right? Music industry is not conducive to people staying for a while. They give you a sound, you try to catch a wave to that sound, and I think it's done almost intentionally because if you leave or self-destruct, they can literally find somebody to replace you because the sound is so easy to do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But there are standout artists like the ones you're mentioning that are going to do music that's going to last forever. And then the rest are, it is what it is, right? It's all to fill up space. We're all trying to fill up space. We go to work and we go to the gym and we walk down the street with headphones in and we just trying to fill up emptiness, right? In one way or another, figuratively or literally. So a lot of the quality gets sacrificed for the sake of just having stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it is quality versus quantity. And it's like, it's fair. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be the one to complain about it, but I think there needs to be some level of balance, and there needs to be some appreciation for the artists who are really about their art, about their craft, who want to push things forward, who want to push us forward, right? The Kendrick Lamars of the world, the J. Coles of the world versus, I don't want to mention anybody else because then, you know, they get salty about it. But you know who I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know the type, and we still jam to it. It's still, you know what I'm saying? It's still a vibe.
Exactly.
You know, but it's a temporary vibe because we were all jamming to songs last year that we probably don't even remember now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
There's so much music that's put out where we're like, what was the name of that song again?
Exactly.
I can't even remember lyrics to music these days because it's just like so much music we're listening to. It's not like back in the day, like we were talking about, where you're listening to that one song over and over and over. So it's like embedded in your head. You know the lyrics now.
You knew where you were when you first heard it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know what cologne you was wearing, what girl you was talking to, like memories that are like seared into our brain that music provided the soundtrack for. You know what I'm saying? Do we have that now? I don't really know. You know what I'm saying? But I think there's an amazing opportunity in recognizing where we are to switch course and make things better.
Exactly. And one song that actually pops into my head is Lean Back, Fat Joe. And that's also someone who you worked with. So talk about how that came about. How did you get to work with Fat Joe? That's so cool. it's you know, shout out to Fat Joe because I think in terms of a lot of admirable careers, Fat Joe is one of those dudes. Facts. Like, he is literally
one of the dopest MCs out there, underground to the core, like was like Big L in the Bronx, grimy, but at the same time did records like Lean Back, did records with DJ Khaled that were like Billboard, smashes.
Killing the game.
You know what I'm saying? So like I was probably 15 years old.
15.
Like I was in high school.
You was a kid.
Yeah, I was just doing demo tapes and battling, and like, a friend of my brother, he was a frat brother of my older brother. And he wanted to manage me, like as a kid, but he was also managing a bunch of artists, and like, it's a whole, again, my parents are from the Dominican Republic, so there's a whole Latino thing going. So, know, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, like it's like a close-knit rapper community. So he got me and his little brother into the studio. And we seen people like Big Pun come in and record, and we've seen the Fat Joe record records, and I rapped for him. I choked. I messed up my verse, but it was so cool. He still called me a pretty boy Dominican because I was dressed all dipped, and like, it was cool. But I ended up opening for him in the Bronx at one point. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just one of those people that I've seen where I have an admiration for him just because of proximity, like having seen his evolution as an artist. I used to work for Warner Music back in the day, so like on behind the scenes, I was like working those records that he was putting out, and just to see his evolution is like very admirable, and it's something like that I would definitely love in my career to match on one level or another. Just be able to kind of evolve through the years, still be a dope artist and be recognized as an artist, but also on the flip side, be recognized as a businessman, be recognized as a personality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if he's writing books now, like just the evolution of artists like himself, artists like Nas, just to see where they are now, it makes things hopeful. It makes things like we can actually evolve and get older in this game, and not just, relate to just being immature or being young and all of that. So it's amazing to see what he's done, and my little experience of it all is really beneficial for me.
Yeah, and then you talked about evolution earlier, and even him as an artist, he's also been able to like evolve throughout his career as well. Like, he's doing a social media thing. Like he knows how to operate Instagram and go live, and like he was doing something huge. I think he's still doing it now, where he would get on live during the pandemic and interacting with his fans and interacting with other aspiring artists as well. Like that's something that he was doing as well, which I thought was really, really dope, because someone like him is who these artists like yourself, look up to. Like, dang, I want to, have a career like him, a longevity in this music industry, because it's tough. It's not easy, and
this industry's crazy.
It's very crazy. And then just looking at you as an artist, and working with artists like that, and knowing the business, and you even took the stage with like Wu-Tang Clan and Jadakiss, and so many dope artists. How did that happen? Like, you've done a lot.
Again, it's me loving this culture. I think that's really first and foremost. Like, I love hip hop. And I say hip hop instead of just rap, right? Because I love rapping. That's gonna be always the thing. I'll probably rap when I'm 80. And be like
I want to see that.
You know what I'm saying? I'll be nice though. Watch, I'm not playing.
I want to see
but
that.
I'm so indebted to this culture in one way or another. I just want to be able to help it and see it grow in any capacity. I just want to see us all win. And literally change the environments that we come from, change the neighborhoods that we come from. We're a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why aren't our neighborhoods looking better, feeling better?
Yeah.
Why isn't the collective mentality of the neighborhoods where hip hop was born improving? Right? You have to ask these questions, and then you come to your own conclusions. But then you have to start thinking about, well, how can I make it better? Right? So for me, it wasn't being Drake level. That wasn't what's going to help the culture better.
Right.
Like, we don't need another Drake. Drake is there.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need another J. Cole. He's there. We need people who are thinkers, who can say, all right, yeah, I can do rap, and I can make, write bars, and I can do beats, but I can also educate. I can also write. I can do journalism. I can do this. We need all of that in every section. So for me, it's because I love this culture. I just was a kid having fun and like enjoying the mixtapes. That when I heard the Locks and Jadakiss on mixtapes as a kid, and like growing up, and just like really just putting myself out there, like putting myself on the scene, making it so that people enjoy my live performances. Say what you want about me in any respect in the world. My live show is crazy. Wow. You got to come to one of my shows.
I want to see this.
You'll see. I just performed with Marlon Craft. Shout out to Marlon Craft. We did a show out here, and it was a place called the Mint.
Oh yeah,
small little venue.
Definitely know the Mint.
Packed, sold out.
Wow.
Right? It was a movie in there, right? Like, this is one of my very first LA shows that I've been doing over the last year.
That's
like,
amazing.
I think the first LA show I did out here, maybe 5 people came.
Wow. But that's how it starts.
Exactly. You
That's
know what I'm
how it
saying?
starts.
But this was all in the course of like the last year. Just, you know what I'm saying? Because I recorded my album out here. So I have an album called Crowns. Literally recorded it out here. Shout out to Entourage Management. They're based out here in Hollywood. So I spent most of my summer coming out here, recording, locking in the studio, but also tapping in with all the local artists, the local venues, all
Smart.
of that, and really just developing like reputation and relationships. And the same goes for anything outside of this. In the Bay Area where I'm based, you know, I know a lot of artists, I know a lot of talent bookers. So people call me whenever there's an East Coast artist in the Bay Area, they call me because I'm the New York boy who people know. Like, all right, so Wu-Tang's coming, it's like, yo, I got to get him to perform. If Griselda's coming, I got to get him to do the thing. You know what I'm saying? So just having those relationships, right? And for every artist who's emerging, it's an important factor aside from money and
you gotta get in front of those crowds.
You have to get in those relationships. You have to get in front of those crowds. People have to see the product, right? Your artistry. Stop rapping over your vocals. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. This ain't a music video. There's time and place for all that.
Facts.
You know, give people a show. And I think me having that commitment to give people an actual show. You see me sweating on stage. I'm telling jokes. It's a vibe.
I love that.
Right? People that leaves an impression on people, and people who have the opportunities to say, like, let me put you in position to get this big opportunity. It works out. You know what I'm saying?
So would you say those relationships that you have now were built when you were like interning back in the day, and it's like you met them back then and you kind of like kept, you know, a close knit with them and they've helped you along the way? Or would you say these people that have helped you, you know, do shows are people that you've like just randomly met? They're like, I want to help you. You're dope.
It's a combination of sorts, but I would say I liken my success or my affiliation or opening for a big name artist to just full circle moments, right? These are artists who I share a sound or a vibe with, but they're also the artists that inspired me.
Yeah.
Right? Like I grew up listening to Jadakiss. I grew up listening to Wu-Tang and Fat Joe. Like I literally grew up to these people.
Yeah.
So they are embedded in my DNA as an artist. When you hear me, you hear remnants of this, right? Like you hear, but you also hear you'll hear some Nipsey. Like I have a song called Wu-Tang Nipsey, where literally it sounds like these two worlds, East and West Coast. It sounds like this really grimy gangster rap, but also this like conscious rap. It's a lot of different things combined. So first, admiring these people and having them kind of influence me as an artist puts me in this pathway where when I'm actively out there in the industry, you're bumping into people and you're meeting people who know these people. Right. And because your sound is very similar, you kind of run in the same circle, you have the same content, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you're talented and you do a dope live show and you do good business, people are naturally just gonna knock on your door when there's an opportunity, and you just gotta take advantage of it. Like you gotta kill it.
Facts. You got to take the opportunity when it's knocking at your door. Would you say you were like nervous at all? Like when these opportunities did come knocking on your, like, you're like, damn, I didn't expect that to happen like right now. Like I knew it was going to happen, but shit.
I mean, I plan for it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's never a surprise to me because I'm literally creating strategy. So I'm manifesting. All the things that I'm doing are manifesting. It's like, I want to do that. Whether I do it next month or next year, it's going to happen at some point. And that's the mentality that I keep. Facts. Is that ability and that belief in myself to say like, yo, I'm going to manifest this into reality. So I speak it into existence, and then by virtue of me just kind of moving in the path that I'm moving, I get those opportunities. They come to me. It's like a magnet, literally. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? And
what's for you is going to be for you.
Exactly. It won't ever miss you. I just told that to my son the other day. Like, it's never going to miss you. It's meant for you. You know what I'm saying? So if I walk around feeling like certain things are meant for me, they're going to happen 100%. Because I'm literally putting myself out there in the world to make it happen.
Exactly.
It's not like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like a lottery pick or whatever the case is. You're just putting yourself in position.
Exactly.
So in terms of
the key right there. You got to put the work in. You can't just sit there like, okay, you know, it's going to happen one day. La da 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 da. No, like,
you got to really grind. And like for me, not only was it a grind, but like when you get those opportunities, I used to tell people all the time, and it was complete cap. Like, yo, I never get nervous. I'm always.
Of course we do. We
like,
all do.
We all do. You know what I'm saying? Like I get a tremendous amount of anxiety before big shows because not only because of the show, but for everything else in my life. What if something happens that, you know what I'm saying? And this is something I've always had as a kid. Like you get tremendous anxiety. Like what if this doesn't work the way that I want it to?
Right.
What if it doesn't happen the way that I want it to happen?
Exactly.
You have to prepare for that. You have to prepare for things to get canceled, rescheduled.
Exactly.
For you to have, you had a certain position on the set list, and then all of a sudden you're in a different position, or you have to prepare for whatever is unexpected and be able to adjust. And what I've seen a lot of artists do is they have this very fixed mindset. It has to be like and so. If it isn't like and so, then it throws them all the way off.
Say that one more time for them in the back.
You know what I'm saying? Like you got to get out of your fixed mindset, get out of the box that you are putting yourself in, saying, I want it to be this way and only this way.
Right.
Because if anything
open.
happens that affects that, you know what I'm saying, then you're stuck, and
Facts.
you don't know how to adapt, you don't know how to move. And I grew up freestyling off the top of my head, coming up with rhymes. That skill set applies to, I see the crowd is reacting a certain way to these songs. Let me switch up my set. I'm not gonna ram down the conscious record song in people's throat if they just here for the turn up. I got turn up records. All right, DJ, let's get the turn up record going. Okay, cool. Now they with me.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Now
Bring
I know how to
in.
wield them. You just gotta be able to wield energy. So like, the only thing that I'm not nervous about is knowing that I'm in my purpose. But with that comes challenges, with that comes new opportunities. And when you see those new opportunities, you just have to accept them like, this is meant for me. Let me put myself in the zone to really show up and show out, right?
Yeah.
Like, preparation and opportunity always have to meet, and that's what takes you to the next level. So you got to stay prepared, stay ready, so you don't have to get ready.
Facts. Like I know artists that have like, since they're kids, like I want to do music, I want to rap, and they were rapping, they were doing their thing, they were like huge in their own city, and then that led them into becoming a music manager, managing some of the biggest artists. So like I said earlier, like be open-minded, right?
Exactly.
Be open-minded, allow one thing to take you to the next thing, and understand, and you kind of said this in a different way, but allow things to happen when they're supposed to happen for you.
Exactly.
I think so many people are so fixated on like, well, they're doing it and it's happening for them and it happened this quickly, or they blew up overnight, or they got a cosign from so-and-so, so I need a cosign too, because that's the only way it's going to happen for me. And it doesn't happen like that all the time. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen for you, and your journey is going to be different than somebody else's journey.
Exactly. You got to stop believing in myths.
Yeah.
We succumb and subscribe to myths all the time, and these are myths that we are telling ourselves.
Exactly.
It's not
Unlearn
anybody
them.
telling. Yep.
Unlearn the world.
You got it. You know what I'm saying? But these are myths, and these are stories that we're telling ourselves about success and how to get it, what success actually is.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And you just got to be open and flexible to what the broader possibilities are. Right? If you love this culture, if you love hip hop, you will love the music industry, whatever it is. Just say that.
Exactly.
It's a broad thing. But if you say, I want to be a rapper, and I just want to be a rapper, and I don't want to do anything else but rap, then it limits your possibilities.
Exactly.
You feel me? It's like to the story of your friend who wanted to rap, ended up being a music manager. You're still in the industry.
Exactly.
You're still doing this. You're still living the dream. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I had the opportunity to manage an artist of mine that I love, or somebody who I think is talented, that's a win.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You're still in the world that you wanted to be in, regardless of whether or not you're in the front of the camera or behind the camera. And I'll tell you, for all the inspiring artists, sometimes behind the camera is a lot simpler.
Oh yeah. And you're also a good example of that too, because you do music, you perform, you do all of these things, but you also, teach hip hop too.
Exactly.
Is it Harvard, right?
No, so I did a lecture at Harvard this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually rolling it out. It's going to be a web series. It's going to be like a 4-part web series. So,
you're a perfect example. So talk about that.
Yeah, so I've been doing hip hop education for the last 8 years. I'm the education director for an amazing nonprofit out of Oakland called Hip Hop for Change. And our entire mission is to give the craft and the culture of hip hop to the next generation. So we're teaching kindergarten through 12th grade, getting kids to rap, make beats, DJ, do graffiti writing, breakdancing, all the elements of hip hop. We're tying it in with social justice, multiculturalism, tolerance, all these things to get them social emotional learning, literate, how to regulate and give language to their emotions and how they feel, all these different things. And I have an amazing staff. Shout out to my entire educator staff, the LA staff, the Bay Area staff. We got people all over the country. But that's such rewarding work. It's such rewarding work. And, aside from me being an active artist, being able to take the things that I learn and experience and then give them to younger people who may be wanting to get into this industry, who may be wanting to get into hip hop, who may not even know that they are part of this culture.
Yeah, or they can, or they're able, or or it's actual career. Exactly.
So it took me a while to really come to terms with, how do I incorporate my teaching into my brand as an artist, right? Like, make it holistic. My rap name is Unlearn. So there's an element of education in my brand name.
Yeah.
Right. So let me bring this in. And then again, when I was working on my album, I said, I want to make this multifaceted. I'm doing beats, I'm doing rhymes. We're going to put it out like everybody else puts out music. But what else can I do that's saucy? And I said, all right, I'm going to create a lecture, a presentation based on the creative process that I had when I was working on this album.
That's
so I
smart.
developed an entire lecture series based on this. I submitted it as a proposal to Harvard. They had a hip hop conference going on. They selected me to lecture and do a whole lecture on my album at Harvard University.
That's amazing.
And I was just like, what? Like, what? First of all, hip hop at Harvard, right? Like that. I mean, this is, you know, and then again, Nas has he has a fellowship there. People shout out to D1. He's like one of the new like scholars who's like actually studying and teaching hip hop through their education program, right? But just, you know, being part of or even lecturing at an Ivy League university, talking about this culture when people didn't even think this culture was going to exist past 5 years.
Exactly.
Here we are almost on the 50th anniversary of this culture starting, and now we're making these kind of inroads into higher education. You have people teaching Kendrick Lamar albums in universities. You have people teaching rap classes and after-school programs. Like, we are evolving in a way that I don't think a lot of people recognize and see. And hip-hop education is a movement. Like, there's so many people around the country who are actually doing this, active rappers, people who are touring and making beats and doing all of that, but then they're also in classrooms, giving this game to the youngins and getting them to do all of the things. So like that to me was the ace in the hole. That kind of, for me, like incorporating education work into my brand as an artist propelled me into everything else, right? You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, you can make money off of music, but then there's all these other things that it gives you social responsibility, right? Like I'm doing something for my community. I'm doing something for the next generation of rappers and MCs and producers and all of that stuff. And it's such a rewarding work that I just want to continue to move in that direction. And that's kind of the, you know, when the rapping's done, which it's never going to be done. I told you, 80 years old, still doing this shit. But it still gives me something new to look forward to. You know what I'm saying? Like when we have a whole hip hop school, when we have multiple hip hop schools all around the country that are performing arts based and they teach all these different things, then I think we're in a good space, right?
And I think it's important that, you know, there continues to become, there's a phone fell, it's all good. I think it's important, as you were saying earlier too, that the younger generation knows about the history of hip hop, the history of music, you know, what that type of music sounded like back in the day, the elements that went into it. And now we have, and we see it, but we don't see it a lot, but we do. We have the old school and the new school artists, you know, coming together and working together and putting music out together. And then we also have, you know, the old school and the new school artists that are beefing. And it's like, why? Yeah,
it's interesting. We're a very unique culture in terms of like a music genre. We're very unique because we are a culture. We came out of like poverty, racism, oppression, right? And I tell my students all the time, y'all are the age, if they're like 13 to like 18, right? Y'all are the age of the kids who started the most important cultural movement of the 20th century going into the 21st century. If you're not aware of that, if you're not aware of how empowering that knowledge is, you're just confined to do whatever you think rap looks like or what hip hop they're telling you it is, right? As opposed to like studying the history, understanding that it comes from kids, it comes from young people, comes from kids of color who are just trying to find a way to make themselves safe and brave enough to express themselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So grounding students in the history of hip hop, I think, changes the way that we create lyrics, right? And create raps. So when you have a young boy or young girl writing raps, if you don't see it, you can't be it. Right. So all they're going to see, if they see nothing but misogyny, if they see nothing but violence or sliding on the ops or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the narrative is, if they see that, that's what they're going to try to emulate.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You have a lot of kids who say, I don't know how to rap because they feel like they have to be violent in order to rap. And if they're not a violent person, then they don't think they can express themselves. And that's not the case. If you study the history, if you're at least grounded or introduced to the history, you don't have to be a scholar of it. Just know where it started and how it started. Then you're like, okay, I have a better understanding of where it comes from and what it means, what it meant to these young kids back in the 70s, what it meant to the kids in the 80s, what it meant to the 90s, so on and so forth. And I have a better way of informing my creativity. My creativity is now guided by and and influenced by my understanding of the history.
Exactly.
So I'm writing different. I'm talking different. I'm acting different. You know what I'm saying? And then I think that just benefits everybody, right? If more students or more kids learn the history of it, we'd be in a better position, right? There wouldn't be such an intergenerational issue, you know what I'm saying? But even then, like, you have Nas and 21 Savage making a song after, like, the media was trying to make them beef.
Exactly.
Like, oh, he called them irrelevant, and what? It's like, nah, they decided, like, we're not doing that. We're gonna just collaborate. We're gonna make a song. We're gonna get this money together, and we're gonna, you know. But it goes back to the, but it goes back to the whole technology thing that we were talking. It's so accessible now. You have a kid in their room working on their music on their own with no tutelage. They get it popping. They're not willing to listen to an OG if they got it popping themselves.
Exactly.
Right? And it, you know, and it has a lot to do with our communities and a lot of other big.
You're like, oh, you have an old school mentality. I'm not listening to you. That doesn't work nowadays.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that hip hop is in a very unique space because we have so many generations active at the same time. Exactly. We've never had that before. In the 90s, it was what was happening then and old school, right? You had the Nas's, the Tupacs, the Biggies, and then old school was Run DMC, right? Now we're at the age where Drake is considered old school to some.
Right, 10 years.
That's crazy. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? He's considered old school to some of these kids who are coming up on the Playboy
back
Cardis.
In the day, the old Drake.
You know what I'm saying? But like, you know, but he's a legacy act now, and like we see the evolution of it, and we see the evolution of him. So it's important that we just kind of build those bridges with the younger generation and keep ourselves just relevant and active. But you have a dynamic in hip hop culture presently where if you're 40 and up, you have a whole list of artists that you can listen to all the time who are still actively touring, putting out music, putting out videos, all that stuff. Yeah. If you're 30 and under, or you in your 20s, you have a whole group of artists that are doing it. If you're 15, you have a whole group of artists.
TikTok.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It's all of these different generations happening all at once. So we just need to recognize it is happening all at once. There is no true way of doing it, because we all have our generations, and let's be happy with that. And let's be really celebratory when generations decide to collab. You know what I'm saying? If there's 3 generations of rappers on a record, I love that. Yeah. I love that for all of us. You know what I'm saying? If that record can make it to top 50 or top 40 radio, even better.
Babyface actually just did like a collaborative, like all female project where he had like, you know, him of course, and then like all the new school artists, which I thought was really, really dope that he like brought all those artists in and had them all work together. And, you know, put the music out, had them all perform, had an event, which I thought was really, really interesting. And that's obviously like the R&B world. But then, you know, going back to the hip hop world where we had like the Biggie and Pop beef, and then we had the, you know, now we have like the Nicki Minaj and Lotto and Cardi B beef, and we have, you know, all these little beefs that go on, even the beefs that we don't even know about. Then we have the beef that we have with rappers and people that aren't even in the music industry, but they're still beefing, and there's a lot of like violence.
It's a lot of contention. It's a lot. I mean, rap is competitive, right? Like, don't let anybody tell you that.
And there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of envy. There's a lot of I want what he has. I just want to get it the easy way, and that's why we have a lot of these like shootings and killings, and like, you know, we saw what happened with P&B Rock.
Yes.
You know, we saw what happened with Nipsey. We saw what happened with Pop Smoke, and a lot of these things aren't even like rap beef. It's just violence. And you talked about violence earlier too, about like, you know, younger kids not wanting to, you know, rap because they feel like they don't have anything violent to rap about, but it's what they see.
Exactly.
And with the violence and the mental health, how do you feel as like artists, people that have a voice, even maybe people that aren't artists, how do you feel like they can do their part to help these issues that we're dealing with?
Right. You can't help the community until you help yourself.
Facts.
Right? Therapy.
I like that. Yeah.
Therapy.
And that's being talked more and more and more.
Mental
and I
health.
like
We're
that.
having those conversations now in our culture. Hip hop is having a lot of conversations around mental health and mental stability. But I think we need to collectively recognize mental illness and how it shows up, right? And it doesn't even need to be mental illness like schizophrenia or something like very severe.
Right.
It could be just something like you're just holding trauma. You've seen a lot of violence in your life and you don't know where that comes out, right? You're angry about something, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's affecting the relationships you have and the people in your life and all of these different things. We not only have to start normalizing talking about it, but also providing resources.
Exactly.
Right? Like
staying in bad situations longer than you should.
we had a whole other hour I could get.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like those kind of things, if we normalize having those conversations or normalize expressing our feelings about what we are experiencing, I think we're going to be better off, because otherwise we're holding this tension. That's paired with normalizing toxic behavior and narratives in our culture, right? So then it's bound to pop off, right? You know, it's bound. Something as simple as a young man being successful, if that irritates you,
ooh, yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Something's chemically wrong in your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can't even enjoy your success because you're worried about haters and you're worried about getting ran down on or robbed or whatever the case is, what is that saying about our culture? You got to start considering these things. We have to collectively start considering what is going on with us collectively, right? But we can't heal the community until we start healing ourselves. We can't fix anything until we start fixing. You can't unlearn the world until you unlearn your world.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Like
and that's something like for me, like especially during the pandemic when we was all locked down and you got to find yourself in your house and you bored of tears and
I loved that time. I'm not gonna lie. I loved that time. I loved that time where things really slowed down.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have to leave LA just for things to slow down. Like we were here, the pandemic was here, things slowed down. We really got to learn a lot about ourselves.
Exactly.
You know, and a lot of people changed career paths. They got into doing things differently.
They became entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? Like I started therapy. Like that was one thing I recognized. I'm like, if I'm gonna be in this house with myself all the time, I gotta like figure what's holding me back from the life that I want, right? And it's only you. Yeah. So you just gotta be in a space where you start recognizing. I think that there was a lot of opportunity given when we was all locked down, and some people took advantage of it. They started businesses. They got mental health. You got physical health. All of these things were happening for a lot of people, and a lot of people just were so scared and kind of put off by the entire thing that they kind of went the opposite way. Yeah. And then when things started opening up and we was back outside, I started seeing it with friends of mine, people I knew 2, 5, 6, 7 years. Now they acting weird, acting different. Are they acting different, or am I in a different mental space?
Right.
Am I able to see what's going on with them? What is my friend circle looking like? Who's healing, who's not? Who's thriving, who's not? You start asking these questions. You start recognizing behavior patterns because you're going through things yourself.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And then however your mindset is, it allows you to either be successful and thrive, or you stay in the loop. Yeah. And you stay doing the same thing. And 5, 6 years ago, and you're like, why am I doing the same thing that I was doing when I was this age or younger than this? And you start recognizing if you're not able to take radical accountability for yourself, then you're not. If it's always somebody else's fault, then we're
always pointing the finger. Think about it. That was like 3 years ago now. 2020. We're at the end of 2022. We're going into 2023, and it's crazy that a lot of us, we always reflect back to pandemic.
Yeah.
But now that's getting close to 3 years ago, but we still reflect back on that because that was a time that we learned so much about ourselves. But what would you say you learned about yourself in 2022? Have you thought about that?
Oh, I mean, I've made so many new discoveries about myself. Like Lauryn Hill, she has an album. It's the Unplugged album. And she has this it's not even an interlude. She's just talking to the audience. And she says she goes, I had to reintroduce myself to myself. Yeah. I had to reintroduce myself to my parents. I think for me, 2022 has allowed me to learn so much about myself and say, okay, here are the things that I want. Here are the things that I no longer want. Here are the things that no longer serve me. Here are the people that no longer serve me. That's
part. Letting go of people that no longer serve you, I think is like the hardest thing to do.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because you're connected. There's an emotional connection, whatever the case is, whatever the dynamic is, there's something that keeps you planted or grounded with this person or with this energy or whatever the case is. But as you grow, you start wanting different things for yourself. You start valuing different things. And then you start recognizing there's a tension because our values no longer align.
Exactly.
Our interests no longer align.
That part. I had to tell someone that one time and they did not take it well.
No, of course, because it becomes a personal attack because they're not doing the growth. You know what I'm saying? And like for me, I'm always, my girlfriend tells me things wrong with me all the time. Right. And I got to sit there and part of me is like, nah, yo, you wrong. Right. I get on. But another part of me is like, nah, listen. Listen to what's being said. Yeah. And is it true? Is it hitting? And then sometimes you got to be like, nah, that's right. Yeah. And I got to own that. And I got to eat that. And I got to learn how to start moving. If you're going to try to grow or have a growth mindset or whatever buzzword they want to use for mental health, like You got to just learn how to accept things, you know what I'm saying? And people who really love you are going to tell you about yourself.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I'm
facts.
saying? Like
That's facts. Like to get you to realize, like, hey, this is, you know, what you're doing wrong, or this is what you're doing right, or this is, you know, how you can grow, and this is just get,
or
like
how
you
we
said,
can grow together, like your team, like how are we growing together?
But sometimes you can't grow together with somebody,
and that's totally
because
fine.
their mindset and, like you said, values are just so different. Like some people feel that, like, well, I love you, we can work it out together. I love you, that's all it needs. We're grounded, let's build. And then the other opposite person's like, well, no, like I need this. I need you to value this like me. I need you to have this quality.
I need you to step into my world is what basically they're asking for. I
Exactly.
want you to step into all of my constructs, all of my agreements, the way that I'm viewing the world for us, because that's codependency. That's toxic in and of itself. Codependent
Facts.
relationships.
Facts.
Like, so these are things that I'm learning,
Like,
right? So
I feel like life can't go on without you.
Exactly. So I'm gonna have to bring you into our world. I'm gonna have to create some weird scare tactic to keep you planted here. I'm gonna hurt myself so that you
Control.
jump here. Like, it just becomes manipulation,
Yes.
gaslighting, all the things,
We've all
right?
been
You know what I'm
there.
saying? But for real,
Yeah.
longer than we wanted to.
Right. Staying in situations longer than we should.
You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, it's always been, all right, where am I going? Who are the people around me? And what is the environment that is going to align with my purpose? Now that I understand it, because first you have to understand your purpose, right? Your purpose is your true north. If your body had a compass, your purpose is the north. That's the direction you always need to go in. If you don't know that, then you don't have your direction. So the minute you know that, then you're able to say, okay, this situation don't fit my purpose. I can't use this situation. This person is not aligning with my purpose. It doesn't mean that you stop loving them. It doesn't mean that y'all can't have some sort of vibe, but you have to be very communicating boundaries, communicating needs, like all these things that are like help you become more emotionally in tune with who you are and what you want to do and all of these different things. It helps. It helps. And then you see that your brain is clearing up a lot more. You know what I'm saying? You're not bound and held back by the same things. You can't kick it with the same partners anymore because they ain't about nothing. They're not doing the things that you're trying to do.
Someone out there needed to hear this. I'm telling you.
You know what I'm saying?
Someone out there needed to hear this.
We all need to hear it at some point. If we're not telling it to the world, we have to tell it to ourselves. Like it's, you know, so it's important that we all recognize as a culture, as a community, whatever it is, that we have to really start doing our own soul searching, getting in a better space for ourselves. And then when we recognize that other people are on that journey, that is our new community. We're all trying to help each other thrive and do better.
Yes, Unlearn the World in the building with me right now on your favorite radio station, The Playlist. Before we get out of here, we brought it up a little earlier, but I want to touch a little bit more on the Project Crown and also your song, Wu-Tang Nipsey. So let's get into that project just a little bit. You said you performed it out here in LA.
Yeah.
For those that have not heard it, give them a little sneak peek in why they should listen to it.
Oh, yeah. So the album's called Crowns. It came out last year. I just did the 1 year anniversary. We're at 2 million plus streams on Spotify. Shout out to everybody who's listened to it. The Spotify rap just came out, so I'm looking at my numbers. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, compared to, comparison is death, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't like to compare.
yeah.
But
But
just
growth. It's
to
growth.
celebrate my own growth. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You gotta talk your own talk sometimes and give yourself flowers. But the album is called Crowns. Most of it is self-produced because I make beats as well. But then you have other well-known producers. Shout out to Jake One, DJ Payne One. These are like Grammy-nominated producers. My man Nabian, he gave me a beat. You know Nabian? Okay, Inland Empire. You from Inland? Oh yeah.
Well, I'm not from the Inland Empire, but I grew up close to it.
Okay, so yeah, shout out to
Everyone
shout out to
knows
the
his tag,
IE,
too.
Nabi. Like but that's my bro. Like he used to stay in the Bay Area. Know him forever. He just did a joint on Kanye's album. He did the Heaven to Hell joint. Gave me a joint. So I have a lot of really dope producers on the album, aside from my own production, a lot of dope features. Mr. Bing Bong himself, my brother Nems from New York City is on the album. My man Jag from South Central is on the album. Homie Locksmith from the Bay Area on the album. Underground Kings. These are all like independent rap stars who I love, their lyricism, all of that. Wu-Tang Nipsey is one of the main joints on the album that people love. If you check my Instagram, Unlearn the World, I think I have a reel. I'm not doing a video, so like it's you can see the reel, you know what I'm saying?
Reels are where it's at.
Exactly. And then, you know, check out the most recent song I put out is called Energy Never Dies, produced by Jake One. He's produced for Drake, he's produced for a lot of other people.
Nice.
We're working on another record, but that's on the deluxe version of the album, so you could check that out. Another song called Black Angels is another song that I'm pushing out right now. We got merch dropping, all of those different things. So definitely just vibe with us. It's a movement, you know what I'm saying? Unlearn the World is the name, the brand, all of that, and more music is coming, and we about to take off.
Definitely. If y'all haven't already heard of him, now you have. Unlearn the World, doing his thing. I mean, 30 years in the game.
Thank you.
And until he's 80. So he got another 50 plus years.
Yeah, something like that.
I love to see it. Again, Unlearn the World. Thank you so much for joining
Appreciate
me today.
you.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
I loved what we talked about. I hope y'all learned a little something, and you're so well spoken. Like, my goodness,
thank you.
like the knowledge that you have, the way that you expressed yourself.
Thank
it was
you.
really lovely talking to you.
Yeah, it's the
and I
salt and
really
pepper in my
enjoyed
bed. That's what it is. It gives me wisdom.
So shout out to him for joining us.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
This is the playlist. My name is Kalisha. And again, Unlearn the World. Where can they follow you out? Give them your social media. real
Social
quick.
media, Unlearn the World on everything.
Boom.
Everything. There you
Boom.
go.
That's it. Simple. We out.
Peace.